Welcome, everybody, to the Afro-Euro edition of the Reco12 podcast. We are a family of recovered people who share their experience, strength, and hope in recovery. You could find out more info by Googling Reco12, and I'll put some information about Reco12 podcast if you would like to share your experience, strength, and hope across all fellowships, addictions, and afflictions. You're invited to reach out to me or on the Reco12 email to suggest your presence. I want to go back and apologize for being a couple minutes late. We have our routine technical issues here, even though I spoke to our beloved Justin in the middle of the night to set up the Zoom account and the tech issues with my computer and phone.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I hear you too. I had to switch mics. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm just introing for one more minute, and then I'm going to hand off to you. Okay.
Okay.
Great. So we're welcoming everyone. I'm going to put information if you would like to share on the Afro-Euro Reco12 podcast. We would love to have your experience, strength, and hope about going through the steps, recovery in all your affairs, sponsoring, etc., etc. Whatever way you slice it, last week and even tomorrow, we have a special pop-up session, The Family Afterwards with Mommies, where I host 2 mommies in recovery. Today, we have a special musician, and for the first time ever, I have invited Tom S., who will open up with a little Reco12 Afro-Euro guitar riff or ditty, or I don't want to mix my musical metaphors. I'll leave that to Tom. That's his expertise. He's going to open up musically for us for the first time ever, and then share a little bit of his recovery bio and his experience, strength, and hope about recovering and living the spiritual life in all of his affairs. Tom, thank you for joining us, and I apologize for the delay.
Okie dokie. Well, maybe I'll just start out with a serenity prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, and the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, and the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There we go. All right. My computer crashed, so I got a new computer here. So I'm having some sound glitches. I hope that came out reasonably well. Okay, so reasonably well.
It was excellent. And music, of course, touches a part of the soul that words just don't. So thank you.
Okay, cheers. Here we go. So I got 20 minutes? I'm looking at my time here. So, all right, Tom S. from Toronto, Canada. I'm a multidisciplinary and addict, all afflictions, all addictions, all afflictions. And thank you, Karen, for inviting me to share my experience, strength, and hope. This podcast, I'm just seeing myself, and so we'll just, I don't know what the audience looks like, or if people are tuning in, how they are probably now on the internet.
Yeah, we got about 10 people logged on and ready to get inspired and hear your experience, strength, and hope. I don't know if you could see all that data, but that's the scoop.
No, I just see you and me, and that's it. So, but anyways, cool. So let me see. So the topic that I picked was recovery through the 12 steps, spiritual recovery. Now, if I, as multidisciplinary and addict, like there can be substance addiction, or there can even be process addiction, or even codependence. And what all of them have had in common for me was that there was some temporary solution that really looked good on the surface that led to a behavior. And then from that behavior, I got some relief. And from that relief, that seemed to work. And when I had tried a little bit of relief and I felt better, then I wanted more. And when I wanted more, then I would try for more. And then ultimately, eventually, it didn't work, whether it was relationships, dysfunctional obsessions with codependence, doing whatever I could to get that substance or that person or that whatever it is. I see you waiting for something there, Karen. Yeah.
Just to drop louder. I'll drop louder, please.
You'd like me a little bit louder? Okay, good. Yeah. All right. So what I'm going to do is just go into my audio settings here and turn that up a little bit and see how that works. How's that? Better? Not too much? Good. Okay. All right. So there we go. So as I said, I got he's got a new computer. So now everything's going to be even better once we get the glitches ironed out. So anyway, so the spirituality is something, if I was able to change the physical situation, whatever substance or make money or whatever, change a geographical cure, then I'd feel okay, but ultimately that didn't work. If I could change the way I thought and psychoanalyze something to the point where I could get the answer because I figured it out, woohoo, then I'd be away to the races. I got the answer and there I go. So anyway, so that's the physical and that's the mental and the emotional. Well, if I could just change the way I feel, I'm feeling miserable, things are down, life sucks. I know I can use a substance or a person or a thing or change whatever, and I'll feel better. Well, ultimately, changing my thoughts to get the answer, I couldn't get an answer because I couldn't think myself into some peace. As we have the 12 steps, came to believe a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. There isn't a slogan called "Figure It Out," and I would find myself in this dilemma of either needing to get like more information till I'd be information overload, and then I'd need to sort through that to get the answer. Or if I felt a certain way, well, then that would be, meet the perfect love or the perfect whatever, and then I'd feel different. And then I'd want more and more and more to get that feeling, but that was from the back and that was projection. So anyway, so that I needed a spiritual solution, something that I was powerless. My life had become unmanageable. Step one, we admitted we're powerless over alcohol, people, places, things, our thinking, et cetera, all across the board in the 12 steps, and that my life had become unmanageable. For me, it was kind of a reverse thing where my life was unmanageable. I kept trying many different things. And I've heard it said in these meetings that our commonality is our strength. It's a we program. We admitted, past tense. So it's already a done deal. And it took me a while to recognize that, but I also see that as a foundation. So we admitted that we were powerless over whatever it was. So that ultimately led to surrender because I ticked off all the boxes of all the things that I wanted to try and do that I hoped that would work for me. And ultimately, they didn't. And so being caught in this place of still obsessing about whatever it was I needed, plus going through withdrawal because now it either didn't work or I stopped using. And then all of a sudden it was like these feelings would come up about and memories as the neurons start to fire, the brain starts to like think and remember stuff and what got me into this position? Well, that became very overwhelming, but by going to meetings, by sharing with other people, by learning about the steps, I went to into a place of that turned my will and life over to the care of a higher power that I didn't necessarily understand. So we're a spiritual program, not a religious program. It's a higher power of our own understanding. That was mentioned to Bill W. by Ebby when he talked about questions about what is God. I choose to call a higher power God. That's my choice. However, people can use whatever labels they want. I'll sort of talk about this part. It's like a cat is this furry animal that goes meow when you pet it. Sometimes it purrs or whatever. And but cat is not necessarily CAT written with ink on a piece of paper. However, that piece of paper can be used to like convey an image. And if people have the experience of what a cat is, then they could go, oh, CAT, assuming it's in English, would recognize, oh, that's a cat. But the piece of paper with ink on it is not a cat. So likewise, that was a hurdle for me to need to come to terms with the experience of a higher power that I choose to call God and the actual dogma or the wording or phrases. So again, that wording, phrases, symbols, the physical, the mental, the agreement, the figuring it out. Well, my understanding of a higher power, my lack of understanding, is an infinite creator that's all wise, all powerful, knows everything, created the universe, and loves us and loves me. And so the higher power, I choose to call God in step 11, just where we pray only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. That meant God didn't have to improve God's conscious contact with Tom. I was created before I was even in my mom's womb, whether it's debatable whether we chose to incarnate or not before we were born. But ultimately, we're here for a purpose which is beyond just damage control and needing to deal with self-gratification and cowering in fear. So after I turned my will and life over to the care of this higher power because I knew I couldn't figure it out or solve my own problems on my own, let alone consider myself sane or insane, but become stable where what I think and what I feel is consistent with the situation that I find myself in. You know, we have fears, but are they reasonable fears? So anyway, how did I get here? Glad you asked. Now that I'm feeling as though this higher power, whatever the group, other people, past tense, turned our will and lives over to the care of a higher power, and they talked to me about that actually worked for them. What have I got to lose? Let's do the inventory, find out how we got here. That's where we end up doing our inventory, which I can get into a little bit, but generally find out how I got to where I was at. What were my concerns? Who do I have a resentment against? And that was an aspect of the resentments, was that when I first came in, what was the role I played in my life? How did I play a role? How did I get the ball moving? Forget it. The problem isn't my addiction. It's the woman I'm dealing with at the time. It's not the alcohol or drugs. I mean, it's like, et cetera, et cetera. So, all right, Tom. Who do you have a resentment against? Oh, that's easy. All right. Well, what do you have a resentment against? Why do you have that resentment? Because she's so mean to me. Oh, yeah. Well, how does that affect you? Well, I feel like, upset, victim, unfair, and who does she think she is, and all this stuff. Okay, well, what role did you play in that? No role. Well, what? Well, maybe I picked some fights. Maybe I was argumentative. Maybe she had something she wanted to say to me and I wasn't listening because I don't need to put up with any crap from anybody, don't you know? Well, how could you have done things differently? Well, could have listened, could have been more kind and loving, could have been more attentive, etc., etc. All of those things. So we work out our columns starting with the resentments and then unpacking that, moving into the fears. I was afraid I would be abandoned. I was afraid that I'd be worthless. I was afraid that she'd cheat on me. I was afraid, well, not so much that, but I'm just using that one example. So there was that fear, the insecurity, which of course I don't have any fears because I'm a tough dude and I've got it under control. Well, let's go back to step one. We admitted we're powerless over our obsessions, our addictions, fantasies, and our lives become unmanageable. Well, maybe I don't have it under control. Well, all right. So eventually we do an inventory, but so I must have some character defects, the fears. So what was the exact nature of my wrongs? We admitted that. Unpacking that, I found it was the self-centered fear. Pretty much anywhere where I lied, cheated, manipulated, freaked out, got angry, played a victim, was in despondency, despair, thought I had all the answers. It was all based on me, and my fears. And when the fears, I ask my higher power to let them go. And I have that confidence because remember, we turn our will and lives over to the care of our higher power so that we don't have to be egotistical and big shots, but we can also have a sense of confidence. And it's okay to have some confidence in truth. And having done this inventory and recognizing what's the role I play and how I'm reactive, then humbly ask, am I sick and tired of being sick and tired? Yes. Step 6, well, humbly ask God to remove our defects of character. And God removes them one day at a time. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. So all of a sudden, back in immersion, just like I could talk about what it's like to swim and what it's like to be wet, but until a person jumps into the swimming pool or the ocean or the water, the experience is just like not necessarily being able to be even described, just like CAT on a piece of paper, describing that, or the cat that actually would you pet the kitty. So anyway, so there we go. So humbly ask God to remove our defects of character, however that will be, because this is a spiritual program. And then looked at the harm inventory. Who have we hurt? And I went from the extremes of I've hurt everybody. Everything I've done has been terrible. I've been abusive. I'm better off. I'm no good. Nobody likes me. Everybody hates me. I'm going to go into the garden and eat worms. Like you might have heard that was like kind of a kid's little poem or whatever. So anyway, so I go from that extreme of total worthless dirtbag to the opposite extreme. I've got it together and I didn't hurt anybody. I only hurt myself. And just because other people take offense, they're the ones who took offense. It's not my problem. Wait a second. Let's get restored to a little bit of sanity. Let's find some balance. I may have hurt other people. I may have created all these different, scenarios and expectations. So that's why, again, when we did step 5 and we turn and admit it to God, to ourselves, another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs, we find that balance again around it. There's little things that I can turn into a mountain and a molehill, and there's the big elephant in the room that I can ignore. So I know I've hurt people, and we make direct amends wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. and then continue to and then step 10 is continue to take personal inventory, and when we're wrong, promptly admitted it. It's like driving a car, oops, I'm course correcting. I'm in my lane and the car veers a little bit off towards one side or the other, and I can just adjust it. And I really intensely dislike having to make amends, so I go out of my way to avoid them. Why don't I do something that I need to do that's right off the bat, and then just keep it like that? So anyways, I'm not perfect, progress rather than perfection, but at least I have a higher power in my life. And step 11 is sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand or understood God, him or her or it or what or whatever. Again, my understanding of a higher power is not limited to the constructs of my own limited understanding or thought forms, but that can be a direct experience in grace. Looking back, sometimes I go, oh, God did create this situation, or God touched Karen to ask her to maybe ask me to share here. I hope this is helping others. Step 12 is having had a spiritual awakening, spiritual again, whatever that means. Anyways, and speaking of the traditions, then, so having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs, which means not only talk the talk, but we walk the walk. And we also have traditions. We don't have rules in the program. We have traditions, which are these principles of common consent, which have been found through experience to work for us because we've been through what we've been through. The addict, the alcoholic, the obsessive compulsive person. But however, common welfare comes first. Our tradition one is that personal recovery depends upon unity. Our personal recovery depends upon that. So our common welfare is something to consider. And as a principle, instead of conflict and bickering and arguments, and which I just detest, as I still need to prove I'm right. Thank God we have these traditions of common consent. And our ultimate authority in tradition, too, for a group purpose, the ultimate authority is a loving God as that God may express themselves in our group conscience. So even if our group conscience and we're getting into these discussions and a little bit of conflict and differences of opinion and everything, well, I have a voice. Doesn't mean I need to bludgeon everybody to prove that I'm right. But yet at the same time, the ultimate authority is that loving God. And that is more will be revealed in time. The truth will come out. And that's, by seeking knowledge only of God's will for us and the power to carry that out, and willing to be honest, open-mindedness. So because my BS and my lack of recognition of what was even true or real, really, how good did that do for me? So I can always cycle back to step one. So, and that's it. Anonymity is a spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles above personalities. So what are the underlying principles and what is the anonymity? And our primary purpose is to carry the message to the alcoholic addict who still suffers. And I hope that there's been a message that I've been able to share with you that I didn't invent or come up with, but that is a spiritual program. It's not a way, but it is no, it's not the way, but it is a way that has worked for millions and millions of people one day at a time. Spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Dive in and enjoy your life and be of service. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share, Karen. I can leave it at that.
Thank you so much. Can I take a risk and challenge you to put that last last bit to music. Spiritual life is not the way, it's a way. And I would definitely love at some point, if not now, but nobody loves me, everybody hates me. I think we'll eat some worms. You referenced that. I thought that might go well with guitar too, but I'll leave it to your artistic license. If you could dazzle us with a little more music, and people can, in the meantime, think of the questions they want to ask you about the experience, strength, and hope you shared. Would that be possible?
Sure, I'll write, so about the backyard. I'm just writing this down. And the other one was, what was the other one? About,
Oh, the spiritual life is a.
okay, yeah, that's directly from the big book.
I'd love to.
Okay, so those can be themes. Maybe I can even pack them together into a sometime. But right now, I will just do the step 7 prayer. Or that was supposed to be for the closing prayer, right?
For the closing, yeah.
Okay, yeah, right. So I don't know what to. Yeah, it's like
the spiritual life.
Okay, so the spiritual life is not a theory we have to live in. I can talk theoretically all I want, but until I pick up that guitar and play just like yesterday, and then I get on my knees and pray, we're going to fool again. Nobody likes me, everybody hates me. Think I'll go into the garden and eat worms. Nobody likes me, everybody hates me. Think I'll go in the garden and eat worms. You gotta live the blues to play the blues.
Okay, and now maybe let's end off with there is a solution. We'll end on a positive note before we take the questions.
There is a solution. As Frank Zappa said, the ocean is the ultimate solution.
I'm sure everybody's clapping. We can't hear them. That's the way this webinar is set up. So I'm going to open up with the first question. In the meantime, I'm going to ask everybody to put their questions in the Q&A. And I'm going to ask you this, Tom. I'm going to ask you about when it shifted, when you pivoted, or when you again, I'll mess up my music metaphors, when you took it to the bridge and went from living in the unmanageability and the powerlessness. Like what got you spiritual? When did that turn? And you could take that either as like a personal question, like I was here and then this happened, or a step question, at what step you really felt that you started really getting spiritual, as a way of life.
In the big book, it says that deep down inside everybody, man, woman, and child, is this fundamental idea of God. It's just that as a child and in my innocence, I had this sense, Christmas was beautiful and everything. But then as I became older, through various family dysfunction and stuff, I kind of lost that and started needing to try to control a situation. And then because, it's up to me to live my life. And then through the addiction and affirmation from friends who were like me, I reached a point where I was dying, living on the street and homeless, and spent 10 years of my life hitchhiking all over North America playing guitar. So it came in dribs and drabs of a connection of just, I can't live like this. and I have nowhere to turn, and I wasn't religious, and yet at the same time, I needed to have that awakening. And eventually, circumstances happened. I won't get into a bunch of details, but it's a spiritual awakening. It happens in dribs and drabs for me. It was I willing? It's like the educational variety in the big book about spiritual experience. Looking back, God did for me what I could not do for myself. Through self-discipline over years of working, I could not have happened to have done some of the things which just brought me by a state of grace into, letting go of the obsession and restored the sanity to recognize that this stuff is killing me. It is not a solution. It'll never work.
I'm just totally moved to tears. I didn't know this about you because on camera, it's the only place I met you. I'm in Jerusalem, Israel. Where are you based?
Toronto, Canada, but
Where?
I hit Toronto, Canada.
Toronto, Canada.
Says that my
Wow.
name. But I hitchhiked from all over Canada, through the States, Mexico, Guatemala, Quebec, which is a large province of Canada. It's French because we had the eastern aspect of Canada was originally settled by French and First Nations people that live in northern remote communities all over the place. It just
Wow. So I didn't know this about you. You were literally on the streets. And then how did you come into the 12 steps? How did you, aside from the grace of God, everything is just the grace of God, but what was it that happened? Who introduced you? And clearly people on the line, there's a message of hope here, because I had no idea that our Thomas was on the streets and in such a condition. And here he is of service to God and his fellows today. Can you share about that?
Sure. You might have heard that line goes, I've never been so broke that I couldn't leave town. So I ended up north on a farm working. I traded hard manual labor for room and board. That was it. Just, and, had one of those creaky water pumps in the kitchen. Water comes out from the well, and split firewood by hand and grew organic vegetables. And that was it. As long as I'm fed and I'm doing all right, it's like I no longer have to live in the violence of, urban hardcore addiction. And I lent somebody a book called Came to Believe in AA, which is a book for, and I was using it to quit smoking cigarettes. So I quit. But I lent it to somebody and they lost.
While doing urban hard drugs?
In the city, mostly just low bottom drunk. But I couldn't,
if I heard you correctly, though, you wanted to use the big book to quit smoking while being an alcoholic and drug addict. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
I love that. I was just working with a hardcore slaw the other day who came into the rooms for her marijuana. But yeah, see, we addicts we live with that illusion. Okay, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt. I was just trying to get the facts straight.
But I meant tobacco, just smoking cigarettes, right? And so I ended up going to Kingston, Ontario, which is a town, and I called them up and I said, by the way, do you have this book called Came to Believe? And they said, no, sir, you'll have to go to a meeting. I said, no, you don't understand. I want to quit smoking cigarettes. It's a book. Don't you have anything like a AA bookstore outlet where I can just go and pick up this book? No, I'm sorry, sir. You'll have to go to a meeting. So I went to the meeting, and I won't go into a bunch of details, but bottom line was that I listened to this guy whining about being an alcoholic, and I've done stuff 10 times worse. So you don't hear me complaining. And but they said, keep coming back. A problem shared is a problem halved. And whatever happened yesterday, we can't change. You have a disease. It's not a moral failing. You have a disease. Your attempt at self-medicating worked. And I had to admit, no, it hasn't. So that started me on the journey. And but until I realized I had a disease and that God loved me rather than God wanted to punish me, and that God and these people in these fellowship wanted to see me live, and they'd been through what I'd been through, and just keep coming back. And you don't have to be sane or you don't have to be anything. Just keep coming back and don't pick up your first drink or drug. And that was it. And eventually I quit smoking too.
Wow. So you got into these 12 steps, this fellowship, it reminds me of King Saul, I believe. He was looking for the prophets say he was looking for a donkey and found the royal throne, something like that.
And then spirituality. When did God come in? I mean, I definitely hear in your story that you hit a rock bottom, that you had the gift of desperation. It sounds like I'm hearing that. Talk about that and talk about where you started getting spiritual, after trying this and that and doing a geographic and changing locations and doing manual labor and going through the whole log list. When did you get spiritual and realize that was your only hope?
Well, spirituality, I think, always is there. It's operational. It's like electricity in the wall socket. I can plug in my plug into the wall socket to access that power. Lack of power was our dilemma, as it says in the book. So the spirituality is functioning there. It's just like my heart is going ka-pump, 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 ka-pump ever since, but there was a time when sometimes I go, holy heck, my heart is pumping. It's been doing this since before I was even born in my mom's womb. But, so I find spirituality is kind of like that. If we don't recognize it, then or I'll speak for me, I statement. If I don't recognize it, then I'm not able to align or to experience that. Or I don't have the, improving my conscious contact so that I can then align with that spirituality, with the truth, love, goodness, peace, inside job, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And I don't have to force other people, force solutions, get in there. This better work or else, it's like just too much hassles. We carry a message, as it says in the big book. We lay down the tools of the program, the simple tools of the program, and show others how they work for us. And then they can pick them up and it'll work for them. So anyways, so that was how it is. It's unfolding again. That's how I would answer your question. I didn't get spiritual one day.
Oh, thank you. Right. I get that. And that's so helpful to me personally. Like it's there, girl. Like just plug in. It's there. It's been there no matter what, hijinks you were up to. It's there for everyone on the line. Just plug back in, plug in your guitar, as they say. You mentioned about laying simple solution at people's feet. And that is, thankfully, we didn't plan that, but that is a great segue to my next question. I'm really curious to know about your sponsorship, about your working with others. And I actually have a question for you about, someone I'm working with. And if anyone else wants to ask questions, I'd love to take some questions in the Q&A. You can post them. But if not, I've got plenty for Tom, because he obviously worked a great, strong program. Talk to me about your work with others. Talk to me about sponsoring, what you do there. And then once you're done with that, I'd love to hear from you about like what you do with the hassle, with the sponsor who relapse, you just walk away. You just say, okay, they book, it's a waste of time. You hang around. So just talk to me about your sponsorship. And then, when they relapse or you're not sure that they want it with the desperation of a drowning man.
Well, it's a 12-step program, not 11-step program. So having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to others and practice these principles in all our affairs. walk the walk rather than just talk the talk, and be a power of example, attraction rather than promotion, as it says in our step 11, and or no, tradition 11, and yeah, it's that's why I've mentioned this as all addictions, all afflictions, because the Al-Anon is a 12-step fellowship for family and friends of alcoholics. And if you read in the big book about two wives or working with others, there are some pretty straightforward instructions that it, it, I couldn't get myself sober. I can't get anybody else sober. I recognize that. If people have the willingness, but are they willing to be honest, open-minded, and willing? How the program works and how it works. Also, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our steps. But no easier, softer way works. The result was nil until we let go absolutely, and that is in the moment. So I can apply that principle. There is one that has all power. That one is God. May you find God now, in the moment. The result was nil till we let go absolutely. We stood at the turning point or the jumping off place. It's like either we're committed, we're going to dive off the diving board into the swimming pool, but there's that point in time when we decide to commit, jump off that diving board, and our feet are no longer on the diving board. And no matter what I do as I'm going through the air before I hit the water, there's nothing I can do to bring me back up to be back on the edge of the pool or the edge of that diving board, because I've made that commitment. And when we make that commitment, that just surrender and let go. And everyone has to do that for themselves. So it's the aspect of codependence and how to be responsible and carry a message. I don't know. Let go and let God. I have to deal with my own fears and guilt and shame, and with maybe somebody died, but that's what happens. People, quote unquote, pass on and leave their mortal coil because of the result of God had other plans for them. They made other choices. That's, I cannot, I'm grateful you asked me to be here. And, we have to work through our grieving also and our sadness. And that's what the program is about. Turn our will and lives over to the care of our higher power, feel our feelings, make amends. Step 10, we continue to take personal inventory when we were wrong, promptly admitted it, and continue to live one day at a time.
Yeah, I'll give you some. I love that about feeling the feelings, because I was sitting with a essay the other day telling me that she was getting involved with a married man and wanted to. And I know, like, okay, I can't, I got to work my 12 steps for my Al-Anonism and my codependency. Like, I said to her, I said, I'm only your sponsor. We got to get you into step 5. And like, you got to finish your step 4. Tell me to do it. But beyond that, I can't take a pen and put it in her hand. I can't, shove the workbook in her face. And even if I did, she wouldn't necessarily write, or, obviously I can't do that for her. And or OAs who are saying, I keep on picking up, I keep on giving. I'm like, okay, and then let me know when you're desperate enough to want this. But what have you had? I imagine you're active. Do you have sponsees that have relapsed or told you they're about to pick up? Like, what do you do with that? Do you just leave it and pray for them?
All of the above. I mean, I think I just, in Al-Anon, it's about keep the focus on ourselves. Let it begin with me. So I don't need to obsess about what other people are doing. If they make the choice, then they need to deal with that. It's the consequences. Came to no power, made it no. We admitted we're powerless over alcohol, people, places, and things in our lives that become unmanageable. Other people maybe need to, just like what I stated. For me, it was that my life was unmanageable, and I admitted it. And I talked to a sponsor about that. And well, what should I do in this situation? What should I do in that situation? He said, well, in step one, you only admitted that you're powerless. Whoever said like, or no, in step one, you admitted that your life was unmanageable. Whoever said life was meant to be managed. I mean, is that even and that light bulb went off. It's like, well, maybe life is not meant to be managed. I don't tell my heart, contract, expand, contract, expand. Food, stomach, okay, start secreting the digestive juices and enzymes. Let's start absorbing those different nutrients into the body. Okay, blood ready to go. Okay, pick up all these nutrients, start building cells. I mean, am I managing all of that? No, it's have some little who said life was meant to be managed? Isn't that even a type of construct? But we have choices and some responsibilities. So I think that's and I'm for myself personally, this free love, free sex, no commodifying people, objectifying them, using them for gratification, and then deciding, oh well, this is perfect, and the other, and then upgrading, and then deciding, well, I fell in love with this woman, she's just so hot and she loves me so much, and 2 weeks later now she's expecting me to do stuff for her and getting on my case. And what happened to that gorgeous woman that was just doting on me, and now she's like I don't need this. I didn't sign up for this. It's like there's plenty of fish in the sea. I don't need this. I mean, all of those character defects, addictive, self-centered gratification. I want it all my way, and using people, all of that stuff. It just leads to guilt, angst, self-hatred for me, sense of worthlessness, having to be a big shot. And if somebody doesn't tell me how great I am, then I'm going to go and back the garden and eat worms. It's like I just have a relationship with a higher power, and then be in a place of health, and then remember, we are fitting ourselves to be of maximum service to God and to other people. Relationships that are healthy with God, I choose to call God, and they're healthy with other people to be able to do service, because it's a we program. Together we can accomplish, many hands make light work, and we can accomplish more. How about that as a basis of relationship? And then from that basis, then be able to become more intimate and sharing, and have a sense of commitment and partnership, and where sex becomes a byproduct of commitment, love, truth, compassion, openness, honesty, vulnerability. Well, it's like, it's like, who needs that? We're so madly in love and we're passionate, and that's it. It's like, hasn't worked for me. If it works for somebody else running their sex addiction,
Nope.
I mean,
I'm an Orthodox Jewish woman on, the other side of the world from you. It hasn't worked for me either last time I checked. And I checked a few times.
and these are practical and these are practical things. We're being, there's a spiritual program. If it works, great. If people can have a beer with their barbecue or a glass of wine with dinner, God bless them. I can't.
I love that. And bless your sponsor who told you that what you said. I had a wow. You said so many great things here, but the thing I'm going to take in my heart for today is, who said life is supposed to be manageable? We're not hiring for that job. That position has been filled. Who said I'm supposed to be on top of it? And, I was just thinking,
as a mother in recovery and you know, really active in my mommy podcast and other parents and daddies too. It's like, just have a couple of kids to think that you're in charge and have to, you know, be slapped up your side to be reminded that no, God is in charge of them too, even though you pay their bills and pay for their orthodontist and straighten their teeth and make their food. It's like you're still not in charge there either. And who said it's supposed to be manageable? Wow, I'm gonna throw in one more question before we do the seventh step 7 guitar musical finale. And this is a real life question from the field. I know we both, I believe, work the Big Book and the Big Book workbook, the 12 Steps in 4 Hours workbook that Nikki uses and that Cameron F. developed so beautifully, and in you know, shedding compassion on us, you know, perhaps less whatever on us people. So in working the workbook and taking someone through, I know we really try and refrain from drunkalogs. Like, we don't need to know all the dirty details of, you know, this one's exploits and that one's, you know, slumming and who knows what, right? And this one's codependency and that one's divorces. But let's say you're getting to know a sponsor, right? And we try and get to know them a little bit at first. And they share like their whole history. I had this happen a little while ago. And I felt it gave me compassion for them, all the stuff they had been through, all the horrors, all the exploitation. But then my daughter stayed out too late and I lost it on her. And I realized, wow, you know, I thought that was being helpful. I thought it was compassion, even though I'm really strict about not letting them do drunkalogs. I did hear a little bit of her checkered past. And then I got into fear with my kids and my teens. Do you have any advice on that kind of thing, on taking to heart? You know, we hear about sex, slave trade, abortions, heroin, you know, molestation. You know, we hear a lot of hard stuff in these rooms. So any words on that? Any Big Book words on that?
Let go and let God, clean house, trust God. Yeah, I mean, it's surrender and acceptance. Whatever it is, page 417. It's when agitated, the first thing we pause and recognize what our fears are. And I'm paraphrasing several of these, but you know, to take a look at once asking God to remove our fears, whether that would be part of an inventory, and then asking God, you know, who would God want us to be, and you know, we're not human doings, we're human beings, and God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. And also, yeah, and spiritual problems or spiritual solutions will solve all of our problems. Yeah, what's that other one? That same sponsor who told, he's passed away quite a while ago now, about you know, whoever said life was meant to be managed. He put on page, he one of the first things he showed to me was from There's a Solution, page 25. The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude towards life, towards our fellows, and towards God's universe. The central fact of our lives today, the central fact is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way that is indeed miraculous, has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do for ourselves. And then there's that, page 61. Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if he only manages well? a victim of a delusion that if I only manage well, I can rest, extract, like squeeze out the last bit of that juice out of the orange, out of life. So if I only manage well, then I can rest, satisfaction. Well, central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty. They used to say the only thing certain in life is death and taxes. Big book has a few other certainties, which are called promises, you know. Our little plans and designs on page 63. Look at this. Page 63. Bum, 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 bum. More and more when we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life, as we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, we became conscious of God's presence, began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. We were reborn.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. So I'm going to ask you to, you were reborn. Can you do the guitar finale of the 7-step prayer? Because I think, anything else would be extraneous.
My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Grant me strength as I go out from here. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Grant me strength as I go out from here.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for your
Yeah.
words. Big book recovery, experience, strength, and hope. May everybody take that music. We are sure that God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. And let's take that tune into our day. Let's take that music into our hearts. Bless you, Tom. Thank you for all that you do for this fellowship and this family. I feel like I'm sitting in front of a living, breathing, walking, making a difference miracle. And anyone on the line, any newcomers on the line, just want you to hold on.
stay in the middle of the herd, as they say. There is a solution, and we have
We're
a
all
miracle.
walking miracles. We're all walking miracles.
Yes, yes. And we can all recover.